feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the all-new JB and Goldwater app. That is free. You can download it and watch and listen to our program in its entirety daily from 12 to 2 p.m. You can always go back and watch and listen as well, and at your convenience if you're not able to make the program each and every at goldwatershow.com. To the right of your screen, if you're watching, that's Darren Goldwater. I'm Jamie. And as I mentioned here until 2 o'clock this afternoon, across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, and individually at Sports Radio JB and at Darren Goldwater. Phone lines are open, 843-321-8893. 843-321-8893. Store it in your phone. It's also right there on your screen. It's in your chat rooms. It's on the website. It's wherever you watch and listen to our program. It's available, and you can pick up the phone and call us, or you can text us, and we'll respond right here on the air. Coming up this afternoon, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central at 12:30. We'll get an update on the Gamecock football coaching staff from him and let you know where things are headed here. We are 11 days before Christmas. We're 2 days before the first signing period of 2020-2021. So we'll see where things stand for Coach Beamer and his next coaching hires. Also, we'll get an update on recruiting, and how about a bowl scenario for South Carolina? There's a couple out there. Which one is most likely? Wes will tell you coming up today at 12:30. At 1:30, Reggie Merriweather, former tailback at Clemson, current sideline reporter. He will give us a preview of Clemson and Notre Dame in this week's ACC championship game. Certainly looking forward to having him on the program. Did not have him last week because of the breaking news of Shane Beamer being hired in Columbia. So going to get him back today, and we'll take a deep dive into that one. More than likely, certainly whoever wins that game is going to the college football playoff, but maybe who loses that game as well. I'll tell you how that scenario could play out when it rolls around. We do have the Cleveland Indians story. We're going to get to that this afternoon. We've got some hoops to get to. We've got some transfer stuff to get to. The ACC is set to name a new commissioner. Heisman odds. A lot of stuff happened over the weekend in college football. We're going to get to all of that, but we're going to start with coaching searches right now, Darren, and breaking news coming out of Nashville, Tennessee, and it looks like Clark Lee, Notre Dame defensive coordinator, will be named the next head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, a guy who grew up in Nashville, played at Vanderbilt, and has one of the best defenses in the country in the form of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He's 38 years old, and right now 12th nationally is that Notre Dame defense, giving up 17.1 points per game. Of course, that number has not been helped by allowing, 40 against Clemson earlier in the year, and we'll see what happens this coming weekend. 14th nationally in total defense, that's yards per game, 314 of those allowed by Clark Lee's D. But Darren, I mentioned to you before we came on the air, I'm a little surprised by this. I'm not questioning Clark Lee as a coach. I think he's a great coach, and we'll see what happens as far as being a head coach of the Commodores. We all know that that's a difficult gig. We are going to get to the Auburn situation here in a moment, but the breaking news is that Vanderbilt has tabbed their man So the second new name to take over a program of the SEC East is now almost official in Nashville.
How dare they break this news after my graphic is built with the Power 5 vacancies? I mean, we're not a staff of like 50 last second. So Vanderbilt goes off that screen. It's interesting, yes, because Vanderbilt has said they want an offensive-minded guy. It's also very, very similar to the Shane Beamer hire. This is a Vanderbilt guy. He grew up in Nashville. He went to Vanderbilt. He's told people that this is his dream job. So we talked about Vanderbilt as a similar type of program that needs to inject this blood of enthusiasm. Maybe that's why Clark Lee got this job as opposed to some other bigger names, as opposed to some offensive guys.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be clear and let's be firm on this as well. They are expected to name Clark Lee the next head football coach. That deal should be finalized within a day. And generally when they say that, they're working on it, and something official will be out probably in just a few hours. Yeah, I'm a little surprised by this as well because, you kind of alluded to it here a moment ago. When the change was made, it was kind of pointed out in Nashville they would really like to have somebody in place who's more of an offensive name. Some other names that have kind of been mentioned out there, Charlotte's Will Healy. We've heard even Jamie Chadwell, although we've kind of over the last few days become to understand that more than likely would not be the case. How about Jeff Fisher, former coach of the Tennessee Titans? His name's been thrown around. I think Bill O'Brien's name was thrown around. Even Jeff Monken at Army. And you kind of heard his name a little bit in the search at South Carolina, but he was never a contender for that job officially. Lance Leipold from Buffalo, another name we've heard out there. Cincinnati Bengals assistant Jonathan Hayes, who's got ties to the school and things like that. So there's been some names out there, and a lot of them have been offensive, but it looks like the Commodores will go with another defensive guy. The question is, what will he do to bring somebody in, some type of staff in place in to help score points? That's where this league has been trending. That was identified at South Carolina in their change with Shane Beamer and him wanting to go out and hire probably a big name guy to come in and run the offense, maybe with Mike Bobo, but we'll get an update on that as well with Wes at 12:30. But yeah, going from defensive coordinator to defensive coordinator in Nashville is certainly interesting.
Very, because things didn't work out with Derek Mason. It would have been like if South Carolina went with another defensive coordinator after Will Muschamp. It would have been strange. But having said that, with the passion that this guy's going to bring, his introductory press conference will be very similar to what we heard from Shane Beamer. I don't know if he's been taping Vanderbilt coaches shows. I don't know if they're doing television Vanderbilt coaches shows, but he's a young guy. He's got a ton of energy. He has told those close to him that it's his dream job.
Right.
So I think you're going to hear and see a lot of the similar things. We need someone who can sell the program, reinvigorate the program, and we trust him to bring in a staff that can score.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to need to do that. Vanderbilt is depleted with players. Remember, they weren't very talented coming into the season, and they have had transfers as well. So there's not a lot of talent up there. There is some, but there's not much. And, we're looking at this from afar, basically, doing what many did with the South Carolina coaching search when Shane Beamer appeared to be the name. Folks were skeptical nationally of whether he'd be the difference maker that Ray Tanner and staff in Columbia need to take over and kind of get Carolina football back on track and winning games again. It's a similar situation for all of us on the outside looking in. But again, because we just went through this in Columbia, we need to remember, we don't know what goes on in these interviews. We don't know what plans are presented. And I think you made a very good point that you could hear some similar things if he is tabbed, which it looks like that's what's going to happen when he steps up to the podium to have his introductory press conference in Nashville, Tennessee. You could hear similarities in what Shane Beamer said in Columbia just last week.
Oh, I think except for the specifics of how much of what Beamer was doing in the past and having told his wife we have to leave Columbia to come back to Columbia, aside from the specifics, the bones of it are going to be the same. I've always loved Vanderbilt. I've always wanted to be here. This is my dream. You could almost cut and splice some of the Beamer press conference into exactly what you're going to hear whenever Vanderbilt introduces Lee.
Yeah, no question about that. Clark Lee expected to become the next head coach. By the way, already updated on Wikipedia. Somebody out there in Wikipedia has got some quick fingers, man. Now, He's only been a defensive coordinator since 2018. Prior to that, linebackers coach at Notre Dame, linebackers coach at Wake Forest, linebackers coach at Syracuse, linebackers coach at Bowling Green and at UCLA. So another guy with no head coaching experience in the SEC, and it's certainly going to cause some intrigue out there amongst the media and things like that. But Vanderbilt maybe certainly feels like they've hit a home run if he is named head coach, which that is expected to be. 843-321-8893 is our phone number, also our text line. Now to Auburn. Before we get to the search itself, here are the openings that are out there. Arizona this weekend let go of Kevin Sumlin, and probably rightfully so. He was blasted on national television after that loss 70-7 by their rival, the Sun Devils of Arizona State. It was almost embarrassing. I mean, those guys were hammering him.
Almost. It was 70-7.
Yeah, I mean, it was
bad. That's pretty embarrassing. That was very bad.
Yeah, it was bad. And Sumlin has not had a good run at Arizona, unfortunately. They've not recruited well. They haven't won any games. They haven't won one this year. But they're looking for a coach at Arizona. An interesting name to keep an eye on is Steve Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator at Alabama. But we'll circle back to him here in a moment, because Auburn, of course, has now fired Gus Malzahn, and I've got a note on that to get to you as well. Illinois looking for a new coach after letting go of Lovie Smith. Louisiana Monroe, they're looking for a new coach. And, of course, if Vanderbilt fills their vacancy, then that would only leave those 4 openings out there. Arkansas State made an interesting hire this weekend in hiring Butch Jones, the former head coach at Tennessee, and, of course, now former staff member at Alabama under Nick Saban. But he's going to go to Arkansas State and take over for Blake Anderson. The others that have been open and now filled, South Alabama replaced Steve Campbell with Kane Womack. We know about Carolina. Jay Hobson out at Southern Miss. Will Hall in. Gary Anderson out at Utah State. Blake Anderson in, of course, from Arkansas State. And those have been the only changes. And there's some speculative out there that there could be some other openings coming. And, of course, we'll see. The seasons are not yet over. But Auburn did let go of Gus Malzahn. Now, remember this, Gamecock fans. There is no mitigation and no offset language in his contract. All right? None. He's going to get $21.45 million. Period. The end. Not only that, he's going to get 50% of that within 30 days. $10.725 million within a month is what Gus Malzahn, someone's going to write him a check for that on the Plains. All right? Will Muschamp was a pretty good deal, wasn't it? All right? You know, not a bad deal. That's how it works. You might not like it, but that's how it works. Sorry, you can bitch and moan about the extra $2 million in the unsigned contract, and Ray Tanner is illiterate and illegitimate and this, that, and the other. You're all wrong. All right? When you got Jimmy Sexton and you're working in the SEC, things happen. And all these things generally are in favor of the coaching staff. That's the way it is, period. So Malzahn's getting paid $21 million to leave the program. He's out. He's out. And they got to pay him $10 million within 30 days. Muschamp's deal, $15 million over 4 years. All right. It's kind of working out for Carolina right now as it pertains to some of these contracts. It's just the way it is. If you want to play with the big dogs these days, that's what you have to do.
And keep in mind, when you talk about these buyouts, most of the time, it is not the school footing that bill.
It's not.
It's boosters. And
right.
I mean, maybe the school will chip in. Maybe they will pay some, but the majority, if not all, will be paid by boosters. It is true for Auburn. It is true for South Carolina. It is true in virtually every scenario like this.
Certainly.
So the optics are bad, right? You're in a pandemic. Staffs are getting cut. Sports are getting cut. And you're paying this guy $21 to walk away.
Right.
I get it. The optics are bad. But that's the nature of it's big business. That's what's going to happen.
That's right. I mean, the who gives a crap what the optics look like? If they can afford to do it, and that's what they want to do, that's what they're going to do. I mean, this isn't affecting anybody else out there.
Yep.
I mean, this is Auburn. Auburn's got it. They're going to do it, and that's what they're doing. But now who replaces him? There have been some speculative reports, and I'm going to make sure that I say speculative with all capital letters here, that Kevin Steele could be a real candidate to replace his former leader. Kevin Steele, of course, is the defensive coordinator at Auburn right now. I'll believe that when I see it. I can't imagine that they would pay Gus Malzahn, who just won this weekend against Mississippi State. And it's not like Auburn is just in the dumps. They're a loaded team with talent. They have been winning. I know that Bama beat them and things like that, but I can't imagine they're going to cough up a little over $20 million and then just promote the defensive coordinator and Kevin Steele at all. So I don't believe that.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That doesn't add up, does it?
No, it doesn't. Okay. It doesn't add up at all. There are the names that are out there for Auburn were similar to those that were floating around for other schools, and it's the list right now that we've seen. We saw it already for South Carolina. The interesting one for me, the most interesting by far, would Kiffin leave Ole Miss in 1 year and go to Auburn?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Would Auburn want him? Maybe. I don't know. But would Kiffin make that jump?
Well, I don't know that you can put it past him.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't. I'm not trying to discredit Lane Kiffin as a human or anything like that. But, I mean, let's be honest. Would Auburn want him if he had interest and they could afford to buy him out and get him over there? I think they would want him. I think you'd be crazy not to want him. But in the back of your mind, how long is Lane Kiffin going to stick around? I mean, if he walked out of Knoxville halfway through the first year, right? He'd leave Ole Miss after one season. This got to be the most hated dude in the league. So, would Auburn trust hiring Lane Kiffin for the long-term health of their program? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would think that if Kiffin really wanted to be there and he was able to sell that to you, you would have to have high interest in him. But that's a fascinating scenario to unfold. Other names to keep an eye on, certainly Hugh Freeze, and I'll have more on him here in a moment. I would keep an eye on Steve Sarkisian. I spoke with somebody last week, somebody who does cover SEC football, and I mentioned Steve Sarkisian, and he thought that's certainly interesting. And he said to me, though, hey, look, I wouldn't take my eyes off of Mario Cristobal up at Oregon, a guy who spent time at Alabama. He knows the Yellowhammer State quite well. If you want to get him now, because who knows what the future, and I say the future, I mean the next year or two looks like down in Miami, because let's say there's an opening this year in Miami, he'd probably be a shoo-in for that job, but Manny Diaz has it currently. He's from Miami. Cristobal is. And he's one of the big names out there in coaching currently right now, and I think he certainly has some interest in coming home based on the things that I've heard out there. How about Billy Napier at Louisiana? I mean, Billy Napier, says, hey, all right, well, I'm going to be here. Yeah, are you? Are you? If the planes call, are you willing to pick up the phone? I'd venture guess that he's probably willing to pick up the phone.
He's going to be there because at the moment he wasn't going to get South Carolina's job. So for the time being, he's going to be there,
right?
Until someone else comes calling. And would he go to Auburn? I would imagine so.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, if they're willing to offer him something, I would think he'd be a guy that you couldn't really turn that down if you're Billy Napier. I would think. He's probably going to get some money out of Auburn if he wants to go there as well. More money than maybe he would have gotten in South Carolina, but who knows? But the Lane Kiffin thing is interesting. It's a wild card, and I think it needs to be in the conversation until somebody stops it from being in the conversation. Yes. Until he comes out and says, I'm absolutely not going, and Auburn says, we're not pursuing him, then I think he has to continue to be in the conversation. The Hugh Freeze thing is interesting. All right, so Auburn, all right, let's give you some background on some of this. All right, Hugh Freeze, the only coach that I know of currently who's beaten Nick Saban back-to-back years and probably should have beat him 3 years in a row when he was at Ole Miss. We all know about the backers. We're not going down that road. But he's a guy that knows how to win in the SEC, and he knows how to beat Alabama. And we all know that Auburn wants to beat Alabama. I mean, that's like, in addition to winning the national championship, it's beat Alabama over there.
The same thing as Carolina, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama. Yeah. How'd our season go? Okay, great. Did we beat them? Did we beat them?
Absolutely. So he's a guy that knows how to do that. Cristobal spent time on the Bama staff. Knows the state. Lane Kiffin spent time on the Bama staff. Knows the state. Knows the SEC. Billy Napier spent time on the Alabama staff. Knows the state. Knows the SEC. I mean, there are some really intriguing names. I don't know that it's smart right now to go outside of that box specifically with those guys until they're all eliminated from contention for this job. And my gut tells me they ain't all going to be eliminated from this job.
I don't think they're going to be eliminated until the interview process goes down, because these are the names we had heard floating on the periphery for Carolina. We knew it was zeroed in on Beamer and probably Napier, but these were names that were floated. And here's a reason why, part of a reason why these were names that were on the outside, that there were other jobs that probably these guys were better suited for. So the Sarkisian thing, here we go again. The Hugh Freeze thing, heard that one. Napier, heard that one. Cristobal, heard that too.
Yeah.
If Cristobal goes from Oregon anywhere, does he take the strength coach? And does that impact Carolina, who may want to go after? Who knows? But I think this is the candidate list. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine a wild card we haven't heard of jumping in.
Let me throw two more at you real quick. One, they're both not one is definitely on the radar, but per this list, not. The first one, let me throw the first one at you. Josh Heupel at UCF.
Right.
Look, I would think you would need some no's out of that group we just said before you got to a guy like Josh Heupel.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Matt Campbell. I mean, Carolina. He had to tell Carolina no.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and he was never coming to South Carolina, but they had to make him say no. Does Auburn make Matt Campbell say no?
It's worth kicking the doors. I don't know how hard you go after Campbell. It may depend on how much Campbell has interest, how much interest he has in that job.
All right,
but my sense is Campbell's not going that way. I mean, I still think in the back of his mind, he's thinking
off the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you finish second to an NFL job, the last coaching search, don't tell me that you want to coach in college.
Right.
I don't believe that. You want to coach in the NFL. So whether you take another college job or not, at some point, you're going, or at least you're going to try.
Yeah, good point. Let me throw one more at you. All right, this weekend, the University of Texas threw their support behind Tom Herman. But does that mean Tom Herman has to support Texas? Would Tom Herman be – look, I'm on thin ice right here, and you know what? Before I get fired, maybe I should just take another job somewhere. Would Auburn be interested in Tom Herman?
I think the optics of that would be hard. We're taking a guy who's under a ton of fire at Texas. And I was talking to a good friend of mine who is, he's probably the biggest Texas fan in the area, Indeed Stevens. And he was pointing out that these losses Texas has had, I mean, it feels like things are going really south, but it's like 1 or 2 plays a game that are costing them the game. And they went for Urban Meyer. They missed, and they said, all right, who out there is going to improve our stock right now? Let's just sit tight with Tom Herman.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's okay with that. But would you pull Herman? It seems like he'd be a tough sell to a fan base when nationally it's been all this discontent at Texas, and now you're going to go hire Herman away. I think that'd be a tough sell.
It might be a tough sell, but they haven't fired him. And if you're Tom Herman, like I would think that Tom Herman, I don't know who's his agent. I don't know who his agent is. But I would think if you're Tom Herman's agent, you've got feelers everywhere all over the country, because here's what you don't want. You don't want to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
You do not want to be the fired head coach of Texas. That's not what you want. Now you'll get paid. You'll get paid,
Mm-hmm.
and Tom Herman will get another job somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. There's no question about that. I mean, unless he royally screws up something like, what we saw with Art Briles or something like that. But if you're Tom Herman and you've got feelers out and you know that, okay, all right, these are the jobs that are open right now, currently. Arizona, Auburn, Illinois. I mean, nothing else. I mean, he's not going to Louisiana Monroe.
No.
But I mean, Arizona, Auburn, Illinois. Who can pay me the most, and which one of those is the most high profile? Well, there's no doubt. It's Auburn. So I would think that there would be, we might never hear about it. Maybe we do. I don't know. But I would at least think that there's a phone call being made somewhere. Hey, would y'all be interested in my client?
I've tossed this around this year, and it's been tossed around in the past. That is similar to James Franklin. People have come after Franklin. Would he leave if the pressure mounts? Would he get out of Dodge before they force him out of Dodge? So is it an option for Tom Herman? It's got to be. You got to be willing to listen, at least hear what someone has to say. Letting that news get out that you listened would be very, very bad for him.
Yeah.
But hearing what they have to say, why not? I don't think it's ever a problem to hear somebody. I think from a fan base standpoint, from the school that brings him, I think that's a really, really, like, you're going to, whoa, this guy's under heat at Texas. He's struggling to win at Texas. How's he going to win here?
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. His buyout, by the way, right now stands at a little bit over $15 million. This is Auburn. They'll find it. if there's somebody that they really want, it's there. That's the SEC power.
I'm not talking about money, but if you want to save money, Dog and Duck has deals every day coming up to Christmas now. So 12 days of, I guess, Christmas. Every day at 10 o'clock on their Facebook pages, they put out a new deal. Today, if you show the Facebook ad at any of the 3 Dog and Duck locations, you get free chips and salsa for your table. There's a free wing or $1 wing one that's coming up either tomorrow or Wednesday as well.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Try the game day burger. Great time to do it this coming weekend with all the championship games, by the way. We do have Wes Mitchell ahead here in just a few moments. We're going to get an update on the Gamecocks staff, their recruiting efforts, a bowl update. Like right now, it's looking fairly likely South Carolina is going to be in a bowl. Will they be able to go to a bowl? Would they accept a bowl bid? By the way, there are a few who've declined bowl opportunities. 3 of them out of the ACC, Boston College, Virginia, Pittsburgh. Now one recently, the most recent, out of the Pac-12, that is Stanford. Those 4 schools have said thanks, but no thanks to bowling this season. So we'll see what South Carolina's future may hold when it pertains to bowls. But we do know this. 3 new head coaches will be in place next year in the SEC. And I would say this, as we kind of leave this conversation in the dust and move to a timeout here, I would say this. Keep a close eye on Knoxville. I know that they beat Vanderbilt this morning. I get it. I understand all that. There's a really good pool of candidates right now in coaching changes. There's a really good pool of candidates. Phil Fulmer might have said all the right things. Well, Jeremy Pruitt's our coach. This is my guy. I made this hire. I'm going to be behind him, yada, yada, yada. Tennessee is paying close attention. 3-7 doesn't exactly cut it. South Carolina made a move to get their, quote, dream guy. Vanderbilt made a move to get, quote, dream guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know who dream guy is in Knoxville?
Sure do.
It's Hugh Freeze. Just saying. Auburn just opened. Just saying. Just keep an eye on it.
So remember 5 years ago, something that hasn't been discussed at all on this show. Kirby Smart was about to go to South Carolina.
Right.
Then Georgia said,
wait a second.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Why don't we make a move to prevent that from happening and you come on over here?
That's right.
There's precedent. This stuff happens.
This stuff happens. Keep an eye on that until it's done that Pruitt's back. Keep an eye on it. Certainly. Time for a timeout. Don't forget our friends at DV's Cheesesteaks, dvscheesesteaks.com. And don't forget when you go there or when you order online, don't forget the boardwalk fries. But it is the best cheesesteak in Charleston because you all voted at that. Charleston's choice, number 1, DV's Cheesesteaks.com, and they're on every delivery app available. So have it dropped off at your doorstep, whether you're at home or at work. DV's Cheesesteaks located in Avondale and West Ashley. I just had one the other day. Fantastic birthday cheesesteak for me this past weekend,
happy birthday, old man.
Absolutely wonderful from my friend Danny Bailey and DV's Cheesesteaks. All right, when we return, Wes Mitchell in Columbia, South Carolina, with Gamecock Central right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas! Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Marv! Harry? Why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell you dressed like a chicken?
The JB and Goldwater Show.
From a treehouse?
12:30, moving towards Christmas. In the middle of Hanukkah for my dear friend Darren Goldwater here.
Smack dab in the middle. Last night was night number 8. Or it's 4.
Yeah.
Which would be half of 8.
What Hanukkah schedule are you on? Yeah. Happy Hanukkah to Darren and friends, and Merry Christmas to everybody. This is the most beautiful time of the year. One of the neatest people, one of the most beautiful people we know. That's Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. He has been inside and out, that is. He's been kind enough to join us once again here on a Monday afternoon to get an inside scoop on the Gamecocks. Hey, bud.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm well. I'm awesome. What about y'all?
Well, this Monday is a little bit different from last Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they've all run together at this point. So, what were we doing last Monday?
Oh,
press conference.
It was just a press conference.
The time in this year has moved at the oddest rate, I feel like, personally, of all time. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's December 14th. I think
it is.
It's Monday, and I think Christmas is around the corner.
It is.
Dude,
yeah.
So last Monday, when we were going through, we did our 3-hour thing. At some point during the show, you pointed out it's Monday. And I thought, how in the world is it Monday? Like, I remember thinking that last week. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. Wow.
It's a Monday that Shane Beamer will remember for the rest of his life.
Yes.
December the 7th, the day that he was officially hired in South Carolina. By the way, tomorrow it's expected to be official. I think the board meets tomorrow, and they'll confirm that contract and things like that for Shane Beamer. All right, Wes, quickly here. Well, not quickly. You've got plenty of time, but let's start with the staff at South Carolina. Any news, any updates on what Shane Beamer is planning to do to fill out those open positions?
Yeah, it's been oddly quiet, I would say. Obviously there's a lot of coaches out there who were sort of finishing up their regular season this past week, coaches that will be finishing up, their seasons this week as well. You have early signing period starting on Wednesday when a lot of guys will go ahead and sign. So I feel like there's a lot of different timelines sort of interconnecting right now, running among each other as far as these coaches go, and when some hires may be made, when they could be official. I think one takeaway that has been interesting to me has been, without fail, when Beamer has done these other media opportunities, be it SEC Network, be it local radio, at other places, he has consistently said that the advice he has been given has been, do not rush your assistant coach hires. So, this is one of those things. Would it be ideal to have somebody in place right this second? Obviously, but everybody's sort of on a little bit of a different timeline. So I think he is going to make sure he gets those hires right. He said that everybody from Lincoln Riley to even Bob Stoops, who he talked to, that's one thing they said was, make sure you get your assistant hires correct as opposed to making them fast. So that's sort of, I think, where we are right now. I know your listeners probably wish there was some really good scoop. But it's been almost strangely quiet, I think, on that front, other than those names that we've all heard that sort of circulated there from the very beginning. I'm not telling you anything new, get the Garrett Rileys, the Jay Batemans, that stuff has been circulating since the beginning. It hasn't gone away, but also it hasn't really solidified either.
If you're not a subscriber, you should be at Gamecock Central. It's a great time to be a part of their family. And it's a great family, by the way, headed up by guys like Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, Colin Taylor, and more. Chris does have a deep in-depth report out today about some of this. And I've got a gut feeling coming up on GC Live today at 2 o'clock, Wes and Chris, which is a great program, by the way. Wes and Chris will go deeper into it. I will ask you on the surface, and I'm sure it's very similar to what we've been hearing, though, Wes, just kind of a surface answer here. Some of the names that we continue to hear currently on staff, the Des Kitchings, the Mike Bobos of the world, the Rod Wilsons, maybe even Mike Peterson. We all know about Connor Shaw, but some of those names, do they continue to kind of be in the mix to potentially stay on with Shane Beamer?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's gonna, in a lot of cases, depend on what happens, elsewhere, what happens in the next couple of weeks. I think a lot of those guys right now are sort of in a holding pattern, and we'll see. It's sort of, you're walking like that fine line. You don't want to speculate really about somebody's future. It is their livelihood, it's their career,
right? So
you're careful about that. But at the same time, I do think a lot of those guys, it's obvious what they've done here at South Carolina. There's always, unfortunately, there's always sort of a little bit of a push back and forth between how many people do you keep total from a prior staff if you're a new coach. And that's always, unfortunately for those guys individually, that's always something that's going to be pushing down, I think, on that number of guys you keep. But there are, even though it has not worked out win-loss wise overall, with the Muschamp staff, there are guys on the staff that are very well thought of, who are excellent coaches, very strong recruiters. And, Beamer's going to have some choices to make, man, which, ultimately from a Beamer perspective, it's a good thing that you have some guys here that are well thought of. But certainly you never want to see anybody, lose their job, lose their livelihood, be forced to move their family and stuff like that. So it is sort of an unfortunate side of this business.
Yeah, it is, no doubt. And Wes, you mentioned, we'll kind of see what happens elsewhere and things like that. Let's keep in mind that this is a different year, if you didn't already know that, with the pandemic. But what I'm actually noting here is conference championship games being played this coming weekend. That's traditionally about 2 weeks later, at least a week later, than what we're used to. But I'm pretty sure it's usually about 2 weeks later. And then in addition to that, you also have games being played this weekend, just makeup games and stuff like that. I mean, A&M and Tennessee, they're playing this weekend. Vanderbilt and Georgia, Florida State and Wake Forest, just kind of sharing a few of them out there in addition to championship weekend. Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, Mississippi State. So there are, I think one of the reasons that this has been quiet, Wes, is there are coaches being considered, and I don't know where from, but they still have a season to finish out. And out of respect for them, their families, the players on their current teams and things like that, you could probably bet that a lot of this will start to come down, I would think, not all of it, but much of this over the next week or so, because we're 2 days from signing period, Wes, and then you got these games being played, and then they'll be able to start kind of moving people around.
Yeah, I think so. And, I said this before, it's kind of one of those things. As a fan out there, you'd love to just it be like, hey, here's the 10 assistant coaches and just announce the whole thing. But generally these things move. It's almost like the information sort of trickles out steadily. At some point, you'll start, you may hear a name one day, then a couple of days later, you may get another name. A couple of days later, you may get it, because everybody is on their own sort of individual timeline when it comes to their season, their postseason, their family, maybe there's some timeline there with them making a decision. Even their contract could come in play, here. When does the current contract maybe currently end, or when does the current contract maybe have a buyout that, that goes down? You never know all the inner workings of these things. And every, it's sort of all these different little interconnecting lines that are sort of going all at once as far as these various assistant coaches go. So, and you know what, here's the thing. Lots of times your coordinators will have assistants that they have worked with before that they will be interested in bringing in to your new staff as well. So some of the assistant hires maybe don't really take shape until your coordinator hire takes shape. And you may, it may be a situation where you have a pretty good feel, hey, I'm about to get this guy, but it's not final until it's final. And then there's always a chance that the current team comes back and says, hey, we're going to give you a raise and an extension, and we want to keep you here, and we're going to do what we can to keep you. And wifey may say, I'm not ready to move. We just moved 2 years. There's all these different scenarios that play out. So as much as we would love to know what's going to happen and predict what's going to happen, again, I say this a lot. We've got to remember, these are still people. These are still human beings. They're not just names on a chessboard or something. So There's all types of little scenarios that can play out.
You must not read message boards, Wes. Yes, they are. We're
what they're not people is what you mean?
No, they're not people.
Not at all.
Yeah,
they're
this,
dollar
it's
figures.
a video game to some people out there. We're going to get to the recruits here in a moment. Again, signing day coming up. It's another busy week for Gamecock Central. How much of an impact would you anticipate? I know there's no way to know. It's a purely speculative question and answer. But how much of an impact would you anticipate the changes at Vanderbilt and Auburn could have on this coaching staff?
On the staff?
Yeah.
Vandy, probably not much, I wouldn't think. Auburn, there's maybe some potential there with Auburn that it could have an effect, I think.
What about
you're
Kevin
always
Steele?
going to look and sort of say, hey, who on that staff, looks attractive, and frankly, who on the recruiting class or who, maybe that's a lean to Auburn and recruiting. Maybe you look and say who out there can we go sort of get involved with in recruiting as well. So there's always some carryover effect. I'd say there's maybe a guy or two on that Auburn football staff though that you'd at least take a look at if you're Shane Beamer.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. And and who knows? Guys, he might be considering hiring. And then Auburn puts a new coach in place, and maybe they're considering a guy that Shane is considering as well. That's not even on the Auburn staff, right? We don't know.
They all know each other. Coaching fraternities are about as small as this studio is. They all know each other,
right.
So it's just a matter of fit and comfort. And I'm sure some guys will be contacted by both staffs.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
Wes, right now there are 10 names on the South Carolina 2020 or in the South Carolina 2020 signing class, which obviously at some point in time this list will grow. And I do want to ask you, what's been going on maybe the last week or so with Shane specifically and how he's kind of been recruiting for the Gamecocks. But how many of those 10 do we expect to sign on Wednesday?
Yeah, it's still a little bit of a fluid situation. I would think though. Part of our job, or I consider part of my job, is to set some expectations. And I'm already on Wednesday. There's going to be a certain reaction from the fan base, but I think it's worth it to go ahead and put it in your brains and go ahead and accept this is not going to be a huge class on Wednesday, and that is partially by design. So they're not going to sign players just to fill a number, if that makes sense. So if South Carolina wanted to sign, basically it would be 21 guys would be the most they could literally sign on Wednesday, because you have 4 kids from the previous class that count forward to this class. So you can sign 25 in a given year, right? But if they wanted to, they could do that. But you have to give yourself a little more flexibility. So of the guys on there right now, of the guys committed, right now, there's probably 3 of them that I think are going to just wait until February. TJ Sanders, Omega Blake, I think John Darius Morgan. Those are 3 I've heard will maybe just wait till February. For the most part, I think the other guys will probably go ahead and sign. So there's there's like 7 or so guys right there. But then there's some guys they're trying to add before Wednesday. There's some guys that they would love to go ahead and have in the class. You look at an Isaiah Norris who they just offered last week out of GMC, another JUCO cornerback. You look at Byron Young, a pass rusher from GMC. You're finding a trend there, though, junior college kids.
Right.
And again, if you start to add those numbers up, you really don't have that many spots left, even with a small class now. So you have to give yourself flexibility. You have to let yourself have room to breathe going into February. And you have to give yourself room to bring in transfers, because if you're going to fill the holes in this roster, it's going to have to be done partially through the transfer portal. So transfers do not count in recruiting rankings. So it's not going to be, and you have to have some quantity to have a highly ranked recruiting class as well.
Right.
So I don't want to set the expectation that South Carolina is going to magically find 10 extra guys and sign them on top of the current commitments between now and Wednesday. It's not going to happen. Just go ahead. But that, again, is partially by design. They're not going to take guys just to take them. They're going to give themselves flexibility for February and even for beyond, because you look, that's the modern way to do it. Arkansas, their quick turnaround, transfers. Rutgers, quick turnaround, transfers. Boston College, transfers. So that's the way to do it. You got to find the right guys in the transfer portal.
Yeah, we watched that Rutgers thing unfold in the offseason. It was, and most of those transfers were Big Ten guys from within the league. They all of a sudden it was like, wow, they got a bunch of dudes here who know this league pretty well. But so what you're saying though is there is a chance, Wes, that there could be a name or two pop up on signing day, which is this Wednesday, or maybe even within a couple of days there. What is the signing period? It starts Wednesday. When does it close?
It's just Wednesday through Friday.
Okay.
So,
all right. 16th through the 18th.
Very quick, very short there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Isaiah Norris, they've offered him. That was sort of a later in the process offer. Depending on the exact time of the offers, that may have been the first offer of the Beamer era at South Carolina. So I think they're in good shape. He's from T.L. Hanna initially, South Carolina kid. They're going to try to flip him from Middle Tennessee. Tennessee has been on him as well, but they'll try to flip him on Wednesday. We'll see if they can add some of these other and hey, there's some guys that maybe have thought about this week, but that also may push it back to February as well. And that's not necessary. That's really not a bad thing if you're South Carolina, because by then you're going to have your staff in place. You're going to be able to recruit to the staff, and it gives you a little bit more time to build some relationships. Obviously, there's some people, Bryce Steele, who was committed to Carolina at one point.
Right.
He's committed to Boston College. They would love to flip him back. Right now, I don't really foresee that happening here on Monday, but if for some reason South Carolina were to have a defensive coordinator in place between now and Wednesday, maybe maybe that could flip back. We'll see. So it's not going to be that signing day where we're tracking 25 kids like normal. It's going to be a little bit smaller class than usual, but you just sort of have to accept that at this point.
On Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC. All right, so Vanderbilt's expected to hire Clark Lee, Nashville guy, played at Vanderbilt, essentially coming home. Maybe a similar situation almost to Shane Beamer, although Shane, of course, not from Columbia, didn't play at South Carolina, but you see what I'm saying here, a guy that really covers the job. Auburn has the opening over there. Some names have certainly surfaced for that job already. Guys that have been kind of speculative names in the past if there were to be an opening on the Plains already or at some point in time, Wes, and we'll see what other names pop up out there. But I mentioned this to Darren earlier. There is something that's kind of common here with Vanderbilt and South Carolina, as I mentioned. These guys really covet this job. I'm literally asking you, this is an opinion question. Could Phil Fulmer potentially say, you know what? There's a lot of really good candidates out there. Maybe Hugh Freeze, a guy who's coveted that Tennessee job for a while. Maybe he's in contention to land at Auburn and things like that. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and pull the plug on Jeremy Pruitt. Do you think there's a better than average chance that could happen in Knoxville?
I don't know. I don't think there's a better than average chance at this point. Just now, I'm not tied into the inner workings there at all.
Right.
So I don't know. I do think what you're seeing is that South Carolina sort of, in some ways, almost empowered the other schools to go make a move as well. I know early on, all the talk going into this thing was that because of the pandemic, because of the financial losses, that schools were saying, or we were saying schools were not going to spend a lot of buyout money. They weren't going to make moves. Everybody was safe. And what we're seeing is that, you can go 6-4 in a pandemic season, SEC only, which if you go 6-4, that's really sort of like going 8-4, 9-3 in a regular season if you're Auburn. So you never know. And more schools, I guess, are being empowered to make this move. And I don't know, maybe even this new ABC money that's going to be coming in a few years helps lessen the blow as well. The projections for that is that each school will get an extra $20 million per year. I think that's 2024 maybe, but still we all talked about how much everybody was going to be affected by, the loss of full stadiums this year as far as ticket numbers and stuff like that. But I think what we're seeing is that the train keeps rolling on. You start projecting ahead to next year. I guess pretty much everybody in the United States is going to have access to a vaccine by June if they want it. So you look and you're probably going to have full stadiums, I think, next year. Everything will start getting back to normal. And I think schools are just saying right back to business, and I was a little bit surprised about Gus, to be honest. So you never know. Tennessee could turn around and do the same with Pruitt, even though didn't they just give him an extension at the beginning of this season?
Yep. Right around the time of the Carolina game. It was either right before or right after that game. But you know what it says? It shows you that the power brokers in this country, the guys with really deep pockets, they're still doing okay because they can kick back to their universities and have these buyouts. And it's showing how big the business of football actually is. I mean, it's going to cost you money if your fan base is all up in arms about your coach. If you're going in the wrong direction, it will cost you money. So in some ways, you could look at these coaching moves and say it's in an effort to save money down the road.
Well, and that's the ultimate question is, does it cost more to fire a coach, or does it cost more to keep a coach? I think that's where South Carolina got to, was they were looking at going into next year, the hope for full stadiums and excitement again, and then your fan base is just like, we're not excited.
Yeah. Right.
And that would not be good.
Right.
So now if you're South Carolina, Shane Beamer won the press conference. Everybody, seems to like him as a person. Even the people that were maybe a little bit not as fired up about the hire, it feels like more and more of those people are now fired up as well. You get some people fired up just for change, period. So that's probably an element here is, does it cost you more? Even as much, sometimes you got to spend money to make money.
Yep.
And $13 or $15 million or even 20 whatever million dollars it is seems insane to us. But then you start looking at the financials of what is coming in every single year, and it makes a little more sense. Although we have to remember that money coming in is put right back into the athletic department to pay these salaries, to pay for new buildings, to pay, it's not like your ADs are sitting there becoming millionaires off of this money. It's getting put right back into keeping up with the Joneses, essentially.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is far different from something like the NFL. I mean, there's not some owner up there who's getting rich. I mean, when we see the financials every year, we know, South Carolina might bring in $150 million in revenue, but they have $143 million in expenses.
Right.
And the rest of that money essentially goes to a rainy day fund. Like, I don't know, having to pay a $15 million buyout. But I mentioned this earlier too, Wes, like, look no further than west on the plains. I mean, Auburn, there's no mitigation clause in Gus Malzahn's contract. And this is what I've been saying. Like, we might not like it, but that's life in the SEC, man. When you have guys like Jimmy Sexton involved in some of these top agents and things of that nature, I mean, they're going to pay him $21.45 million or something like that to go away, and $10 million is owed within 30 days. Carolina got a pretty good deal with Will Muschamp. They're going to pay him $15 million over 4 years. Again, that sucks, but it's nothing like what you have to play that game with the big boys to be a big boy in this league.
Yeah, you do. I mean, that's just the facts right now, unfortunately. And you would sort of think at some point this would maybe even back out a little bit, but right now the agents hold all the cards, it appears. And I mean, go back. I still remember, and golly, talk about it all running together. I don't remember how many years ago this was now. I still remember, was that last year? I still remember Gus Malzahn is playing in Auburn is playing in the SEC championship, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start hearing that Arkansas is about to make some huge play to steal Gus Malzahn from Auburn. And literally the Auburn sentiment went from might be time to get rid of Gus. To then he's playing in the SEC championship. That would have been 2017, I think. And then it's like, well, we can't let Arkansas come in here and take our guy. And so Gus goes from getting fired to then playing in the championship to Auburn putting in all this different stuff to keep him as opposed to firing him. So it's crazy how quickly this stuff shifts as well.
Yep.
And how much an agent who, let's be honest, represents almost all these guys at this point, can sort of maneuver everything.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, it was 2017 because they went 7-1 that year and won the West, and then lost in the Peach Bowl, I think. Yeah, Peach Bowl. Because they were 10.
They lost to Georgia in the SEC championship after beating Georgia in the regular season, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's but you look at the last couple of years with Gus. I'm pulled it up. 8-5, 9-4, 6-4, no better than third in the West. That's combined 23-13 record of the last 3 years. I mean, look at Auburn. It ain't good enough for them. I mean, they want more than that. Bama's right down the road, and that's what they're.
Yep.
So they're going to try to get here. Before we let you run, real quick, any update on? It looks like South Carolina will go bowling, but we just don't necessarily know where. We don't necessarily know if they'll be capable of going bowling with enough players and things like that. But any update on the future bowl destination for the 2-8 Gamecocks?
How weird is that sentence to say? No updates on that. I will say it's almost 1:00 right now. The team is scheduled to meet this afternoon, so within the next hour or so, I think. So they had to report back. They would go through their COVID testing. That's always the first part of coming back these days, and so I think we'll maybe start to get a little bit of information trickling out. How many players are back? How many players are, contact traced or even positive and stuff like that. We should start to know at some point in the first half of this week exactly what South Carolina's roster, frankly, would look like for a potential bowl, and if that is even going to be something that they can do. I think around the country, the question is going to be how many programs can actually field a team in order to go to a bowl, I think.
And how many are willing? We've got 4 opt-outs of bowl games. Opt-out's a big word this year, but BC, or Boston College, I should say, Virginia, Pittsburgh, Stanford, they've all declined invitations. And as you mentioned, we'll see what happens with South Carolina if they even have enough players. We've heard places like Tampa, the Gasparilla Bowl, even the Gator Bowl has kind of come up. Of course, that's from CBS. And if you read the report the day before Shane Beamer was hired, they were going to hire – who were they going to hire? Newt Rockne?
Yeah. Hugh Freeze is still the leader to land the Gamecocks job.
But CBS has projected the Gator Bowl potentially against Wake. I mean, they're all projections. I think we've seen Birmingham, Fort Worth. Who knows? But we should know something within the next few days, as pointed out by Wes Mitchell. All right, Wes, quick plug for yourselves. I know you got the show coming up at 2, but what are you going to be doing throughout signing day on Wednesday?
Yeah, we'll have complete coverage of that, of course. We'll probably have a special live show at some point that day as well, a little bit longer. Come join us, GamecockCentral.com. GC Pod will get you 30 days free. Code Gamecocks will get you 50% off your first year. So that's our deal we got going right now.
Great coverage as always from Wes Mitchell and the entire team over at Gamecock Central. I hope you all will make sure you wish them a Merry Christmas this year because they deserve a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's been a long one. 2021, though, certainly looking good. Wes, we got you one more time next week before we get to the big holiday, and we'll look forward to that, my friend.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
There you go. Wes Mitchell on Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC. Time for a timeout. When we return, some hoops to get to. We'll get to the Indians name change as well. Saturday's set up for the championship games, the Heisman odds. A transfer quarterback might have his destination. We'll tell you who that is. And a new commissioner is expected to be named in the ACC. All that plus what happened this weekend in college football, some baffling stuff. Don't throw a shoe at me. Hang tight. We'll be right back on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
Merry Christmas! Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clemson, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clemson, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour here on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. Head to McFaddenPestControl.com. If you've got the holiday parties, the family coming to town, whatever it is, and the bugs are running rampant, oh no, you better squeeze them in quick. They'll get there, I promise you. McFaddenPestControl.com, owned by our friend Heath Gunther. He's a great man. They've been in business for well over 40 years in the Lowcountry. They protect my house from termites, from mosquitoes, from household pests, and everything in between. And they should protect yours as well. They're going to talk football with you, so make sure you got time when they show up. They're going to want to stick around and ask you about head coaching changes and plays and shoe throwing and things like that. But I promise you, they're the best in the business. That's why they've been around for over 40 years. As a matter of fact, he took over this company when his grandfather retired. It's a great family business. They're better than all those big dogs out there that are nationally known and things like that. They care about the Lowcountry, and they care about you. McFaddenPestControl.com. They're really particular in the playroom and in the kids' room at my house. Don't want to do anything that's going to upset us and things like that. We just let them have free reign because we trust them. You should too. McFaddenPestControl.com. 843-321-8893. It's our phone number. It's also our text line, and it's open. If you'd like to be involved in the program, do it. Send us a message, and we'll put it up on the screen, or give us a call, and we'll plug you right in to the show as well. Just like we're going to plug in Reggie Merriweather at 1:30 today. He'll give you a preview of the ACC championship game, round 2 between Clemson and Notre Dame. If you're watching the program to the right of your screen for the first time, that's Darren Goldwater. I'm Jamie, and we're here, as I mentioned, until 2 o'clock, individually at Sports Radio JB, at Darren Goldwater, and across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. Download the all-new JB and Goldwater app and head to jbandgoldwatershow.com.
And if you're watching, you'll see Nathan Crocker's comment said, just joined, looking forward to the extra content. He's talking about the season ticket pass, the extra content that comes through. Download the app. There's a button that says season ticket suite. Go in there. You get Gamecock talk. You get the whiskey talk that'll start here in a little bit.
Yep.
You get the interviews cut up right after the show, delivered to your inbox. Plenty of good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And I apologize to some who've been looking forward to some Gamecock talk over the last week. Obviously, the coaching search has thrown some things off. We had some little projects in place and have not been able to get those out. We've been doing a lot of stuff with our show, with the coaching search and things like that at Carolina. But soon, my friends, very, very soon. All right, to the ACC we go. A new commissioner is in the works, and it looks like it is now done. The Atlantic Coast Conference will hire Northwestern Athletics Director Jim Phillips to be their next commissioner. This was first reported by Yahoo Sports, and it looks like it is confirmed news now. Jim Phillips, of course, will replace John Swofford, who is retiring. This announcement should be in the coming days. He has been really good for Northwestern. He's been there for 13 years. He's been one of the country's most respected ADs, certainly. Northwestern is making their second trip to the Big Ten championship game in 3 years. If anybody's seen the new facilities at Northwestern, they are as top-notch gets, right up there on the lake. How about the men's basketball team? They've reached the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. It's just been magnificent. $270 million, by the way, went into Ryan Fieldhouse in the Walters Athletic Center at Northwestern. So Jim Phillips going to take over the ACC. One might remember just a couple of months ago, the name that kind of emerged to maybe be the commissioner of the ACC was Jim Clemens. He's the president at Clemson. But earlier in the month, he kind of withdrew his name, got a new deal to stay on as president in the upstate of the Tigers, and so that's what he's going to do. So they're going to reach into the Big Ten. This guy was a finalist for the Big Ten job last year. Did get it. Kevin Warren, as they say, came in at the 11th hour and was named commissioner. One might wonder what the future of the Big Ten could look like with Jim Phillips leading the charge and calling the shots, right?
I can tell you this. Hindsight 2020, right? We'll see what Jim Phillips does for the ACC. If you're a fan of the ACC, if you're a Clemson Tigers fan, on Friday, we are going to talk a little Big Ten championship game with Northwestern's Trey Essex, who won a couple of Super Bowls with the Steelers on the offensive line for Roethlisberger. He knows Phillips well. He goes back to Northwestern every single year for the alumni days and that stuff, so he can give you some more insight as to who Jim Phillips, the person, is that the ACC is getting.
Yeah, big hire, certainly, for the ACC. A couple of transfer quarterbacks have found destinations. One of those names was maybe rumored to be in contention to land in Columbia, South Carolina, believe it or not, but he won't. J.C. Sherbert was right on the money with us last Wednesday. Mackenzie Milton, the transfer out of UCF, is going to stay in the Sunshine State. He will head to Florida State. How about that? The Noles going to bring in his talents. And Dwan Mathis, a transfer out of Georgia, he's going to go up the road to Temple. They've got a transfer quarterback who is in the portal currently as well. Anthony Russo, a name to keep an eye on. Some have rumored him to maybe come into South Carolina with Shane Beamer. We'll see. But two of the bigger names out there in the transfer portal now have destinations. Mathis to Temple, Milton, FSU. Should be a good shot of adrenaline for Florida State, by the way.
Florida State, yes. Temple, you're getting a guy who is more of a runner than a passer, and there's a good reason why Mathis transferred from the SEC and slid down a little bit to Temple.
Right. All right, here's what this coming weekend is going to look like. It is championship weekend in college football. But remember, because of the pandemic, there are other games that will be played this weekend, makeup games and things like that, as it pertains, as we mentioned a little while ago, to the coaching search at South Carolina, having to kind of wait till things play out so we can kind of see what it's all going to look like. But Friday night at 8 o'clock on Fox, if you didn't already know, Southern Cal, and we're going to get to them in a minute, Southern Cal and Washington will kick off from the L.A. Memorial Coliseum in the Pac-12 championship game.
Probably.
They should. I know that there's some maybe not be able to play this thing because of COVID, but as of now, It's on.
Uh-huh.
And that's on the schedule. 14th ranked Northwestern and 4th ranked Ohio State, at least as of now. College football playoff rankings will be released tomorrow night. That'll kick at noon on Fox Saturday from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. The Big 12 championship game from AT&T in Arlington, Texas. 11th ranked Oklahoma, Shane Beamer. 7th ranked Iowa State. Of course, that presented by Dr. Pepper every year. Oklahoma 5.5-point favorite in that one. By the way, the line in the Ohio State Northwestern game is at 20.5, and out west it's 7 in favor of the Trojans.
20.5.
Yeah, it's big.
Oh, it's small.
You thought it'd be bigger?
Jump it, yeah.
I think it'll grow. I actually thought it'd be a little bit less than that. I thought it'd come in around 17 or 18.
All right.
They gave him a couple more points.
Okay. All right, we'll see. I figured it would be in the 24-5 range.
Look, Ohio State is looking to put a fist pound,
Bingo.
a handprint, whatever you want to call it, in that one. Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats can have their hands full. Louisiana and Coastal Carolina. They'll kick at 3:30 on ESPN. The Sun Belt Championship, Coastal 4-point favorite. Remember, they already beat the Cajuns earlier this year. Billy Napier could be in contention for maybe the Auburn job. Clemson and Notre Dame will kick at 4 on ABC. How about the Tigers 10.5-point favorites over the Irish, who beat them earlier this year up there in South Bend? And then that night at 8 o'clock, you've got the American Championship, 24th ranked Tulsa, 8th ranked Cincinnati, who's still maybe knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Florida lost. That's coming up here in a moment. That one is on ABC right after Clemson and Notre Dame. And, of course, at 8 o'clock on CBS, you've got Alabama and you've got Florida. And maybe some of the luster is off of this game now because of a shoe that flew 20 yards down in the swamp where LSU went and won the ball game. By the way, right now, maybe the two leading candidates to win the Heisman Trophy, Mac Jones and his teammate, Devontae Smith, wide receiver with Roll Tide.
Interesting, right?
Very interesting.
So are they going to pull votes away from each other, meaning someone else slides in and wins? Can Trevor Lawrence still push his name to the front with a dominant game against Notre Dame? Or will one of those guys actually come away with it? Typically, when there are two guys from the same team that have legitimate odds, they pull from each other and hurt each other.
Certainly. Here's what's interesting, too. Heisman Trophy voting starts today. It's already started. It started this morning, I think, at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
It ends at 5 o'clock Eastern, December 21st. They have 1 week to get votes in. What's going to be key here is how many votes are cast before this weekend. And if you're a Heisman voter, which we have multiple Heisman voters on our show every week, Gene Sapakoff, Corey McCartney, amongst others. If you're a Heisman voter, you got Kyle Trask and Mac Jones and Devontae Smith all in the same game this weekend. You got Trevor Lawrence against Notre Dame, who didn't play against Notre Dame in the first one. Now, I think that Trevor Lawrence is really an outsider looking in at this point in time. I mean, he's going to have to, none of those guys need to play well, and he's going to have, the biggest game of his
30
life.
of 33, 500, 6 touchdowns.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
He'll have to run away with it. So it'll be really interesting to see how many votes are cast before these games. I hope none. I hope the answer is none. Right now, I'm not a Heisman voter. If I was, if I had to cast my vote today, it would be for Mac Jones. It would be for Mac Jones today. If I had to cast my second vote, it'd be for Devontae Smith. If I had to cast my third vote, it would be for Kyle Trask. Because I do think that those two, Smith and Jones, have played off of each other and elevating both of them to the top this year.
I agree with that. And the interesting thing is typically this vote has been done already prior to the championship games actually being played. So I agree with you. I hope that the majority of voters, if not all voters, wait until, if you're given the opportunity to wait until the games this weekend, then wait. What's your rush? You can get it in. I even think it's electronically. Dan Patrick was talking about it this morning. I think it's a virtual thing now that you can go in and submit it that way. So wait. Just there's no urgency. Let's see how the Heisman hopefuls play against each other. I mean, if Kyle Trask can lead Florida to a win over Alabama, that's a difference-making type of win. That's a Heisman type of moment if he is the reason Florida beats Alabama. So wait. Patience, people.
Now, the rankings are going to be released tomorrow night. and there's always controversy, and there probably is going to be more tomorrow night. But what I've been saying the last few weeks isn't true anymore. And Florida is not a top 4 team. And Florida, even if they happen to pull a stunner over Alabama at this point in time, I don't think they're in.
I'd agree.
All right. Here's interesting about that. If Florida, let's say Florida just shocks the world and beats Bama, which right now that likelihood is not there.
The odds have dropped.
The Florida defense was exposed again this weekend, and you got Bama rolling in.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. But let's say they pull the shocker of all shockers. The question will be if Bama drops below 4.
Right.
That's gonna be the question, and that's gonna be a very argumentative point amongst many out there. If Florida, who just lost LSU, who just hasn't really been that good this year, would beat Bama right now. Texas A&M losing the Ole Miss game is enormous. For the Aggies.
Losing, Jamie's talking about not playing.
Not playing the game.
Inability to play it this weekend.
Not being able to play the game because they have Tennessee this weekend, and they should be just fine against the Vols. All right, so they'll finish the regular season at 8-1, but they can't play in a conference championship game. But they've got more games. And we heard Dabo last week talking about more games should be more of an opportunity to be in the college football playoff as opposed to, say, Ohio State, who's in there right now, and I'm projecting should be in there tomorrow night at number 4. But they haven't played as many games. So there's only one team at this point in time, there really is only one team. We'll see what happens with like Cincinnati or something like that. Now, I'm getting to the wild card.
I know where you're going.
But there's only one team right now that could be knocking on the door of, well, maybe we should put them in over Ohio State, and that would be A&M if they had already played Ole Miss and beat them probably handedly. That being said, where is Southern Cal in this? All right, because let me give you a stat. You ready for a stat?
I like stats.
All right, okay. Indiana's not in the conference championship game this week in the Big Ten.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. Ohio State and Indiana are combined 11-1 this year, and Ohio State beat Indiana.
Yes.
And they're 5-0.
Yes.
And they'll be 6-0, which will be their best win of the year. It could be argued, but probably their best win of the year against Northwestern, right?
If not Indiana being their best win. Yeah.
Well, all right. You know what the combined record is of those teams that they have combined for their 11-1 record?
It is not good.
Well, how about this? You know how many of these teams have a winning record?
0.
1. It's Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Because
Ohio State's opponent, Indiana. Okay, okay.
1. None of the other teams have a winning record. It's pretty dismal, actually. All right. Southern Cal, though, they have wins over 2 teams that are 500, not better than 500. The rest of them, none. But they've only played 5 games as well, right? 7-14 is a combined record of the teams that they have played. Now, if Indiana wins this weekend and beats Northwestern,
Ohio State.
It's Ohio State. I think if you look at the resume, I think Ohio State does have the upper hand over Southern Cal. But why is there the discrepancy? 4-15, Pac-12, Big Ten, and they've done very similar things and beaten very similar opponents this year.
The strangest, I wish you could have seen my reaction when I saw the graphic of ESPN's playoff predictor last night for the first time, the updated one. It had Southern Cal as the 4th most likely team to make the playoffs, ahead of Clemson.
Right, which is...
And I'm thinking... I did a double take. I said, you've got to be kidding me. Southern Cal barely came back and won their game this weekend to stay undefeated. Barely pulled that thing off. And they have had some nail biters this year. They had no business beating Arizona State to start the year. Remember, they got an onside kick at the end of the game to go down and score again to win that game. But I'm assuming what they're saying is, look, Clemson is the number 5 percentage-wise to make the playoffs. If they beat Notre Dame, they're obviously going to slide back into that thing. Is Cincinnati a viable option out there? Is it just Ohio State and Southern Cal that we're talking about? Because you got Cincinnati, you've got A&M, you've got conferences bitching at each other because your schedule's not as strong as our schedule. You got Dabo firing shots at Greg Sankey. You got Dabo firing shots at Ohio State. Everyone is out for their best interest. That's all that's happening. But at the end of the day, in that one room with the playoff committee, those 13 people, how are they going to separate an unbeaten Ohio State, an unbeaten Southern Cal? Keep in mind for Southern Cal, when I said maybe they play Washington is having COVID issues. Washington has not been given a timetable from the Pac-12 to decide whether or not they can play this game. So Southern Cal is preparing for both Washington and Colorado, I believe it is, to play. And so they have to prepare for two different teams because they don't know who they're going to play in their championship game.
Right.
It's a mess out there. It's just odd because we haven't been talking about a Pac-12 team at all. And now suddenly, bam, here they are.
Well, and I've begun to hear the expand the playoff folks out there because of this issue. Now, remember, this is the issue is here. This issue is here because of the pandemic. Now, if we had an expanded playoff where Power 5 champions were in, it just wouldn't matter. Whoever wins each league is going to be in the college football playoff period at the end, and whether you play 6 games or 12 games or whatever it is, it wouldn't matter. You win the championship, you're in. You're going to have a chance at this thing. I'm not advocating that Southern Cal should be in there over Ohio State because they still need to play championship games this weekend and sort this stuff out. The committee is obviously going to have a difficult job to do. What I am trying to figure out, though, is they're both 5-0, and there's an 11 ranking difference. There's 11 spots between their rankings in 2 Power 5 leagues, and neither one of them have a great resume. I mean, I get Ohio State beating Indiana, but Ohio State started there.
Right.
Southern Cal didn't. And they have the same record. Neither one of them have done anything spectacular this year like all those other guys up there have. Heck, for that matter, even Cincinnati. And there's 11 spots between their rankings at 4 and 15. I don't think Southern Cal is getting in to, all right, let's play this out. I don't care who they play. Washington,
whoever in the Pac-12 in the title game.
Oregon. It would have to be. It can't be Colorado. Colorado's on the same side as Southern Cal. So it's Oregon. It's got to be Oregon, right? So I don't care if it's Washington or Oregon that you would play in the conference championship game. So you win it, and Northwestern upsets Ohio State. Is Southern Cal's going to move up tomorrow? But they're not moving up 10 spots. They're not going to number 5. They're not going to number 6. I mean, they might move up like 4 spots by beating UCLA. But if, let's say, Ohio State was upset by Northwestern and Southern Cal wins the Pac-12 championship, are they really going to jump them all the way to 4?
Tomorrow's rankings become the most interesting rankings that we've had of the playoff rankings this year. I mean, they've been staying pretty consistent. We know the top 6 will change because Florida will move now. We know that part. But, yeah, where is Southern Cal going to fall? This is where I want, towards once the NCAA selection committee has the basketball field announced, then you get to go kind of behind the scenes and hear some logic from some people about why certain teams were seated where they were. I want that transparency right now about Southern Cal and Ohio State and Cincinnati in particular. Those, I'd thrown BYU in until they lost to Coastal Carolina. You can even put Coastal Carolina into that mix. Just some transparency. Where are we? What's the separating line here? Why is there this gap between unbeaten Southern Cal and unbeaten Ohio State? What talent level are you seeing? What metrics are you going by to tell you that there is a 10-team gap between these two? I'd like an explanation. I don't know if or when we get it.
The AP poll, which means nothing clearly, but the AP poll was released following this weekend's results. And it's just kind of a food for thought reference piece here. You have, by the way, you have Coastal that jumped into the top 10 per the AP at 9. But you've got Florida falling to 11 from number 6. All right. And Cincinnati going to number 6. Southern Cal still hasn't jumped Florida. They're at 13. But they're undefeated at 5-0. But they don't have them over 2-loss Oklahoma, 2-loss Florida, 2-loss Georgia. Per the AP, Ohio State is 3rd and Clemson is 4th. Those haven't changed over the last couple of weeks. A&M is fifth. So you see what I'm saying? Like, there are so many discrepancies. Like, if you want to try to pull USC into this, and then you got Ohio State, who just hasn't played a lot of games. You know, Dabo's been kind of hammering them on. Dabo's not hammering them because he thinks that the reason he's hammering them is if Clemson loses to Notre Dame, he's still trying to make a case for 2-loss Clemson with both losses to the second-ranked team in the country in the Irish. That's why he's hammering everybody.
Yeah, it's anything you're hearing from a conference or a team about what the College Football Playoff Committee should be doing is strictly a PR move for either the team or the conference in which it plays.
Right.
That's the only reason you're hearing that stuff.
Like, they're trying to find their argument, whatever they can find their argument.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if Southern Cal, per the AP, can't jump 3 teams in front of them, 3 Power 5 teams, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, with 2 losses, and they're undefeated at 5-0, how on planet Earth would the College Football Playoff Committee look at them and justify them jumping all the way up to even have a prayer at making it into this thing?
Because they're just humans, right? It's 13 people in that room, and the AP is voters, so it could be a complete difference of opinion. But
you don't see. I mean, there's no way they could jump.
You wouldn't.
They don't have the schedule to hop that high.
You wouldn't think so. I would agree there, and that's where this whole COVID year becomes even more fascinating. Would be the wrong word. Annoying would be another word, because the bodies of work are not the same. And even when you can compare a team's schedule versus another team's schedule, at least the body of work is the same length, right? I mean, you can tear apart the body of work as you wish, but it's how do you compare a team you've seen play a full SEC schedule to a team that's played 5 games?
Yeah.
How do you, the sample size, the eye test, there just isn't enough information out there. Having said that, can the committee do it? Of course they can. Of course they can say, Southern Cal, look, let's say Northwestern stuns Ohio State. Southern Cal wins the Pac-12. Can the committee say, you know what? Unbeaten Pac-12 champ. They were on the preseason radar anyway. Can they slide in? Yeah, you could definitely see it.
If Southern Cal played Texas A&M tomorrow, I would have no reservations about picking A&M to beat them by at least 2 touchdowns.
I wonder what the Vegas odd would be on that.
You know what I mean? Like, A&M, I'm predicting is going to be 5th again tomorrow. Yes. I don't think anything's going to change in the top 4.
No,
or
top
5.
Yeah,
top 5.
I agree.
You'll probably have Cincinnati at 6, I would think.
Yeah, that would make sense.
A&M is planning to beat the brakes off of Tennessee this weekend. By the way, it might even be more of a it might help Phil Fulmer make even more of a decision if he's thinking about letting go of Jeremy Pruitt. We'll see. But Jimbo Fisher is going to try to lay the hammer on the Vols.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's going to try to beat them by 50 points if he can.
And he should.
And Ohio State's going to try to do the same thing to Northwestern.
Yes.
But if they can't, if it's close, one way, I mean, if they lose, they're out. But if it's a close win, 7-point win, something like that, maybe they pull away and score one late, make it 10 or something like that. It's got to be close.
Something that the game's not in doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, it's something
sloppy for Ohio State. They win by 7, win by 10, but it just didn't look good.
Northwestern hanging around,
that type of thing. And then there's A&M. They just hammer somebody. I mean, hammer Tennessee. I mean, flat out. But Tennessee's not any good, but they hammer them. You know, I don't know. Southern Cal. I don't know. Cincinnati's sitting here going, look, guys,
hey,
we played a lot of games, and we got a championship game this weekend as well, and we got a pretty good resume. Don't forget about us. I could care less. Pac-12's not any good anyways. They're just not. They're just not any good. I mean, they got some good teams, but it's not any good. Of course, Big Ten hasn't been any good this year either. So
no, they have not.
It's a fascinating scenario to follow. No doubt about that. Thanks to our friends at Patriots Point. They present the national anthem daily at 1 o'clock right here on our program. Holy City Drive-In Movie Series is Friday nights over at Patriots Point as well. You can head to holycitydrivein.com. They've been showing the Christmas flicks this time of year, and it's been a lot of fun. They've had Home Alone. They've had The Grinch. As of now, no plans to show a Christmas movie this coming weekend, but that could change. And the Holy City Drive-In Movie Series is in no way, shape, or form going anywhere, so always head to holycitydrivein.com. Head to patriotspoint.org if you got family coming to town for the holidays and you need to get out. They are white glove certified, very spaced out over there at Patriots Point. Go tour the museum. It's the finest military museum we have here in the state of South Carolina, patriotspoint.org. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, we'll head northwest. That's where Reggie Merriweather is, Clemson, South Carolina. We'll preview this weekend's ACC championship game with sideline voice of the Tigers right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes Dub.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas! Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Nobody's walking out on this fun, old-fashioned family Christmas. No, we're all in this together. This is a full-blown 4-alarm holiday emergency here. We're going to press on, and we're going to have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with
The JB and Goldwater Show.
'Tis the season to be merry. That's my name.
Mary? Sup, Mary?
As they say in Christmas Vacation. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to all of you out there watching and listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Merry Christmas to this guy as well, Reggie Merriweather, former standout tailback of Clemson University. Of course, he roams the sidelines now, and he joins us at 1:30 on this dreary Monday afternoon in the great state of South Carolina. Hey, man.
What's going on? Thanks for having me on again.
Well, we're going to get to the ACC championship game here in a minute, but first, all right, if Marco Wilson was your teammate, this is the shoe throwing guy in Florida, what would you have done after he chucked that thing and they kicked that 57-yarder? What would you have said to him? Can you even say that on radio? What would you have said?
Well, no, I mean, in the heat of the moment, obviously I've had some personal fouls. I've done some things that I'm not proud of, but in the heat of the moment, you have to understand that, costing your team, you just have other implications online. So I'm sure he got an earful from not only the coaches, but if I was his teammate, a player at the time, I would have just, patted him on the helmet and said, just control your temper and, do better next time. But obviously, again, man, from the fan base on down to the coaching staff and the players, I mean, a game that you were highly favored in. And I think the point spread was might have been double digits. To lose that game like that in the fashion that they lost it, I mean, just gut-wrenching. I mean, just awful. But again, I posted on Facebook and Instagram and said it's hard to get those wins. I mean, just ask all these other teams that out here that have, played a hell of a season and probably went 4-5-0, and some teams got film on them. Then they come out there and they throw the best punch and they end up winning the football game. But it's tough to get wins, man, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, no question. And we need to point out as well, like, look, the Florida defense. Reggie, I actually thought going into last week's game, I thought, all right, if they put it on LSU here, which everybody, except South Carolina, of course, but if everybody's been doing it this year to the Tigers, if they can do it, and I thought Florida was maybe the 4th best team. I like them over Ohio State, actually, not anymore, certainly. Their defense just hasn't been that good. It's been very inconsistent, I would say, throughout the year. So that's one thing. But the other thing to point out, the dude kicked a 57-yard field goal.
And he couldn't see.
And he aced it. I mean, that thing was good from 67. I mean, you got to give him credit, right?
Yeah, you got to give him credit where credit is due for sure. 57-yard field goal in the fog. And it basically hit it right down the pike, and it probably could have been good for 63, if not longer. So, hats off to LSU and the coaching staff for, having the guys prepared to play this game. But I think another big note in that game, too, you're talking about defense. They just gave up way too many chunk plays.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many plays they had over 30 yards, but, I mean, it's probably closer to, 5 or 6. And then they had a couple of big touchdowns in the red zone, man. A couple of great interceptions, too, or turnovers. And, you just can't win a game, turning over the football and giving up those big time plays like that.
I wonder if LSU is rethinking their quote self-imposed bowl ban now.
Okay, we beat Florida.
You know what? On second thought, we'd like to go. They do have coming up this weekend Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. By the way, real quick, again, we're going to hit a couple of quick notes with you, and then we'll move on to the game itself. But Auburn decided to part ways with Gus Malzahn. I know you saw the news, and Lane Kiffin's a guy until he's firmly said no, which he hasn't. He's been asked about it already, and he said no. We've not had those conversations. He didn't say I'm not interested.
Exactly.
But until he's firmly eliminated from this conversation, I think he's going to be a part of it. Other names have surfaced for this job. Reggie, big names out there in coaching. We saw some of them come up with South Carolina, like Billy Napier, Hugh Freeze, Mario Cristobal, Steve Sarkisian, names like that. But let me ask you this. I mean, Darren and I didn't talk about these two names earlier, but these two names continue to come up. They're great coaches and great people, and they're going to. What about a Tony Elliott or a Brent Venables? I know that Brent has said for years he loves where he is. His kids are there. His son, I saw, broke his arm. He's out the rest of the year. But these are two great names at Clemson, and these are two guys who have been and will continue to be pursued as head coaches. Would either one of them, you think, be willing to listen to the folks down at Auburn, and would they be a good fit with the Tigers in the SEC?
Well, in all honesty, I think SEC is the marquee job that you'd want. I mean, they have the SEC network. They're always playing in prime time. Auburn has a very big following, very big fan base and alumni, and obviously you've got the big boy of them all, which is Alabama. They're in the same state, which is a rival. And I think that's a really good job. I think one thing that a lot of people probably don't know about Brent Venables, it has to be the right time, right place, right situation for him, and the right money to leave. So I think he'll be a little bit harder to get. But Tony Elliott, I think he would be great for that job. Obviously, money would be, money changes a lot of things, but I think money would be a big thing in that. And I think the big thing for Auburn is Bo is a great quarterback, no doubt, but they need a quarterback whisperer down there. They need somebody that, knows how to, not per se, fix them, but I mean, you don't recruit guys, to mold them. You kind of recruit guys to fit into your system. And I don't think they've been able to get a quarterback there to help them out. And I think that's the biggest steal that they've had. I mean, even in the South Carolina game, looking at Bo Nix play that game, I was like, dude, throw the football. You can't hold on to it for, 5 or 6 seconds and expect great things to happen. And then on fourth down, not being able to throw it in the end zone and you take a sack. I just think, again, they need a quarterback coach to be able to, mold some of that talent. And, it's a great school. I mean, it's a great program to be able to play for. And it's much like Clemson in the sense that, campus look the same, stadiums look the same. Have the same guy that, started Clemson, started Auburn. So, I think it will be a really good job to take over. And it's a prestigious deal to play in the SEC. And I think Tony would be a great fit for that program. But again, it has to be the right money and, the right circumstances for him to leave. And I think Venables is probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. He's getting paid very well here. And then again, too, type his bonuses, and he's getting the top recruits. So I think it'll be very hard to get him there without the money being right. Again, SEC is a great conference, prestigious conference, and any of those two guys will be awesome for that job.
Very kind of an ACC boy like you to say things like that about the just little old Southeastern Conference.
The other Tigers.
Well, I mean, look, Reggie's right. I mean, you land a gig in the SEC, you've kind of hit the big time. But when you as it pertains to like the ACC, I mean, Clemson's not in the SEC, but it's as prestigious as any school in the SEC right now. And there's probably a couple. I mean, I would even still say that about Florida State. I know they haven't been any good, but I mean, their facilities and the history and things like that. Anyways, we're going down a deep, dark rabbit hole, Reggie. Let's not do that. All right.
Yeah.
you got a big one coming up on Saturday. 10.5-point favorites are the Tigers. We'll start to preview now. Round 2 between Clemson and Notre Dame, the ACC championship game. It's become a home away from home for Clemson under Dabo Swinney, certainly. And they have not forgotten about the 7-point loss up in South Bend only a few weeks ago against the Irish. Of course, that one was without Trevor Lawrence, but let's not forget that game was also without some of the meat of the defense. I mean, that was one of the big keys to me going into that game was, wait a second, man, they're missing some guys right in the middle here who are difference makers. Yeah, not anymore. They're back, and they'll be ready to go this weekend against Notre Dame. We'll start on the surface here as we preview this ball game. Most important matchups that weren't there in round 1 that will be there in round 2 for the Tigers.
Well, having Skowski and Davis back is a pretty big deal. They hunker down that middle there. You have Jones back too, and then a couple of the guys in the secondary, to help stop that run. So one of the biggest things in this game was basically, just rushing. Travis Etienne could not rush the ball, and Clemson defense could not stop Ian Book in this rushing attack. If you look at the yardage here, I think they had over 200-something yards rushing on 40 attempts. And, Clemson had only about 30-something yards rushing that entire game. So, it's crazy to think that the Travis Etienne, who is going to go down in the record books as one of the best to do it ever, didn't have 100 yards rushing in that game, and they could not give him the football. But he also had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown, and that was obviously the difference of that game. So for me, looking at the stats, man, one of the things that Clemson has to do is they have to, again, put pressure on Ian Book, but they have to stop the run game first. And I think that's one of the big things that having, Skowski back and Davis and all those guys in the secondary will help. But obviously, again, too, it also depends on which Ian Book shows up. Is it the guy who is going to throw interceptions and fumble the football? Is it the guy who's going to take care of the football and, convert on third down? So, again, I think they rattled him a little bit when they played him last game, but he was able to get out of some big time, I'm talking about big time plays and convert third downs. And, his guys just played obviously lights out for him. A couple of those catches that they made on the sidelines and stuff, I was just like, wow. Mm-hmm. But they played a hell of a ball game in Notre Dame. So, like I said, again, if they can stop the run game and put some pressure on Ian Book, I think with the talent that they have coming back, man, they'll be victorious. But, again, they've got to get Travis Etienne the football, and they've got to be able to run the football effectively, and that'll open up the pass game for Clemson.
So it's one thing to say they got to get Etienne going, they got to run the ball effectively. How can they do it? How can they do that better than they did last time?
Well, here's the difference now. You had a true freshman quarterback come in and throw for over 400 yards, okay? You had two of the biggest games, two wide receivers over 150-something yards receiving. But I think the big deal with that was I think we probably condensed the playbook a little bit having DJ in the ball game. And, having Trevor back, you'll be able to, again, you have a running quarterback to be able to run that RPO action, but you also have a guy that knows all the checks, a guy that knows all the audibles and stuff to be able to, get yourself out of some trouble. A lot of people don't know too, man, on that one that Travis Etienne fumbled, they blitzed right into the play. So Travis saw it, he got the football and couldn't wrangle it, but that's maybe a play that, Trevor Lawrence would say, hey, let's check it. Let's move to the other side. Or I'm a fake pitcher, then try to throw it down the field. So just little knick-knack stuff like that. And again, it's hard to get wins. It's hard to get wins this late in the season. And it's hard to beat a team twice. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's like, oh, yeah, Clemson's favored. But again, man, this is a very well-coached Notre Dame staff and very well-coached team. And so, again, it's hard to beat a team twice. But you have to respect Ian Book and his legs and his body of work and what he's been able to do. So, again, having all these guys that have been injured back is going to be a big-time deal. But, again, very dangerous team in Notre Dame. And like I said, if you can stop that run game and put the ball solely in Ian Book's hands, you're going to have a very good chance to win this ball game.
Ian Book, actually, he did have a wonderful game against Clemson. Let's also remember he had his most incompletions in that ball game, 17. He did fire it out there 39 times. 22 of them landed in the arms of his own guys. Another note on him, and Reggie's right. I mean, when we came into the year, all right, and everybody was talking about Notre Dame, and I think everybody kind of shared similar thoughts to what you and I shared, and I think even Reggie with Ian Book prove it, because he's been very inconsistent throughout his career. Talented kid, we know he's got it, but he's been very inconsistent. He threw a pick in the first weekend against Duke. Remember, it was a less than desirable 2-touchdown win against the Blue Devils.
We thought Duke looked good.
Yeah, thought Duke looked good. Ian Book didn't throw another pick until Ian Pick didn't throw another pick until December the 5th against Syracuse. Only 2 of them thrown this year. But Reggie mentioned his legs. How about this? And he's not really considered a dual threat guy, but it's the scheme, Reggie. And this is where I'm going with this. If you could kind of break that down from a football sense, he's not, quote, a dual threat quarterback, but he's carried it 91 times this year. And he's run for 465 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's 5.1 yards a carry as a quarterback. That's impressive. What do they do that allows for that to happen? Because these are not all just breakdowns.
Yeah, no, not all of them are breakdowns. But here's the deal. And the reason why, I just, there's only a few quarterbacks. And I'll take this to the next level. There's only a few quarterbacks in the National Football League that can take it down and get you a first down with their legs. There's no Tom Brady's rarely who run for a touchdown or a first down. There's, only a few guys that can do that. But if you're looking at this team on film and you've got 4 or 5 wide receivers that are legit like Notre Dame has, and you've got a decent offensive line, you have to, in the back of your mind as a defensive coordinator, you're going to say, okay, guys, this is how we're going to approach this game. We're going to blitz him and make him make the right throws. Okay, well, if he doesn't feel comfortable with making that throw, he can pull the ball down and, get you 4 or 5 yards, right? So as long as you don't play behind the sticks, you still have a chance, to get the first down, to get those third down conversions and move the chains. And so that's why a dual threat quarterback is more desirable than a pocket passer, because obviously, again, it's a numbers game, right? We're going to blitz them from so many different areas and so many different angles. We're going to let analytics take over, and we're going to win some, we're going to lose some, but we're going to win more, we're going to lose. And I think with Ian Book being such an athlete, to put the ball in his hands and say, hey, you don't have to make that dangerous throw into double coverage or one-on-one coverage and a guy tip it off his hands or miss the football and they get picked. You can take it down and run it. And so that's why he's been so dangerous. But like you said, again, he's had a couple of turnovers and interceptions in some games. And, it's late in the season. They've made all their checks and stuff that they're going to do. They have not peaked, but they're at the tip of their game right now. So, again, it just all depends on what Ian Book shows up, because we got pressure on him in that game. We rattled him, and like you said, he had 11 incompletions or 17 incompletions. And we got to him at some points of that game. We just couldn't get him down. But having, 200-something yards of rushing offense, again, that was played to their advantage in the close game. They were able to, like I said, milk the clock, get some first downs, and take some of that pressure off of Ian Book. So that's why I said, having those guys back on defense to be able to stifle that run a little bit will help out. And like I said, Ian Book, man, he just takes what the defense gives him, and that's why he's such a good quarterback. But, again, Venables finds different ways of getting pressure on him. Just when you get back there, you can't rush past him. You have to break down, slow down, and, make the tackle. But like I said, he was elusive in that game that we played him. and he was able to convert those third downs and stay on the field. And he made some really great plays happen in that game to keep those drives alive.
Reggie Merriweather here, 150 on this Monday afternoon. Clemson, of course, going to have to stop Kyron Williams as well. He ran for 140 against the Tigers. Now, remember, there were 65 of that 140 was on that one big run in the ball game. Reggie was a tailback. Every yard counts at the end of the day. Right? Isn't that right? They all count, don't they?
Yeah, it all counts. Yep, inch mile will all count.
That's right. Without that run, though, he had about 22 carries for 75 yards or so. So about 3 yards a carry. Clemson, for the most part, had kind of done their job. All right, outside of Lawrence being back, we've already established that Lawrence being back, kind of able to redirect the offense, play in and play out, things like that. We know about the guys who've returned from a health standpoint. But the team as a whole, what have they improved since they played Notre Dame?
Well, if I had to say one thing that they've improved in, it's basically ball handling. You talk about the turnovers that we had at that game, and we haven't had that. We had 3 turnovers in that game, and we haven't had that many since. I just think taking care of the football and just basically, starting out fast. You look about that Syracuse game. Not Syracuse, Pitt. They started out very fast. I mean, the most points scored in the first quarter in, a couple of seasons. And, I mean, they just really play with their hair on fire. So I think that's several of the things that they have to do, this coming weekend is basically, be prepared to take the best shot of Notre Dame, actually keep Ian Book in the pocket and make him throw the football down the field. And they have to be able to get Travis Etienne, find creative ways of getting him the football. And, again, as you saw it this past weekend against Virginia Tech, everybody keys in on Travis. You know what I mean? And then you have Ches Malusi and Dixon come into the ball game and have 50 yards rushing. Even Darren Rencher had a 50-yard touchdown. So, again, that's crazy to think about how much number 9 draws the defense's attention. But I said it since day one. I said, if I'm a defensive coordinator, 16 and 9, only one of those guys can beat me. And I'll pick my poison. And you're not going to have a 250-yard rushing game on me. So we're going to stop the run and make Trevor Lawrence beat us with his arm. So, again, I think Notre Dame has that in mind for this championship game as well. And I think, too, man, just watching how hungry this offense has been these last couple of weeks since that game, they're gonna come out on fire.
Coming up, 4 o'clock, the ACC championship game on Saturday afternoon. This one, of course, will be televised on ABC from one of the new homes of the Clemson Tigers, Charlotte. That's where they play the ACC championship game. All right, Lil Dabo. Give me your best pitch here.
Lil Dabo.
So, Clemson wins. We all know they're in the college football playoff. Notre Dame wins. They're in the college football playoff. What is the pitch from either side, though? If Notre Dame drops the ball, I don't anticipate the rankings changing tomorrow night, Reggie, at least the top 5. What if Notre Dame loses, in your opinion, what does that loss need to look like in order for them to stay in the top 4? And Clemson, if they happen to drop their second game of the year, obviously it'd be their second game to the second-ranked team in the country in Notre Dame. Should they still be deserving with 2 losses a shot at the college football playoff?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Now, I think again, you have to practice what you preach. And for me, 2-loss teams should not be able to get in. And for this game, it depends on if Notre Dame, loses by or wins by 1 point, or loses by 30. It's kind of one of those things where you have to look at a resume of a team, right? Wins and losses also count, but you have to look at the resume of the team and say, hey, what win was impressive, what win was, mediocre, what loss was impressive, whatever it is that, they all take into, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. And like you said, man, watching Ohio State now, and even Florida, what if Florida hadn't played that game and they lost, this weekend? Would they still be, a top 10 team? I mean, it's crazy to think what they take into consideration for these teams in these games. But for me, I think Clemson, again, is a top 10 team. I think they have the recipe with the offense and defense to play for a national title and get into the CFP, whether they have one or two losses for the same team. But for me, we got to, like I said, you're gonna talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So a 2-loss Clemson team does not get in, and then a 1-loss Notre Dame team depends on whether it was a blowout or not. Probably should be in. It just again, their body of work. I think the only team that has been impressive win per se was Clemson, and that was minus their starting quarterback and minus a couple of key guys on defense, but they still were able to win in a double overtime thriller at home. So again, body of work. I'm looking at Alabama as the most complete team, the number 2 team. Still pending, but like I said, Notre Dame and Clemson will have to face each other, and then the winner should be able to definitely go into the CFP. But again, if I'm on the the college panel this weekend, I'm definitely looking at Notre Dame and how they handle this game and what points they win or lose by for sure.
All right, 1 minute answer here then, because we gotta get home here. There's only a couple minutes left in the program. 1 minute answer here though. If Ohio State beats Northwestern this weekend and they're 6-0, Dabo has been outspoken about teams playing more games. Maybe should have a better look than a team that only plays 5 or 6 games this season. But if Ohio State beats Northwestern at 6-0, should they be in?
Yeah, sure. Why not? You think about what they've done in these last 2 years. The last time they won it was 2014. The last couple of times they've been in it, they've actually got absolutely embarrassed. So again, I hope they get in. I hope they play Alabama first, and I hope Alabama rolls by 30. But it's kind of one of those things where they, like I said again, man, they wanted to play. Their commissioner said, "Hey, hold off," and then they kind of put themselves in a certain situation where they're at now. So hey, they only play 6 games and win. Yeah, I hope they get in. The asterisks going to be by all this stuff anyway. So, but sure, why not? Let them get in. They're undefeated. Let them roll.
You'll be in Charlotte covering the game in person, correct?
I believe so.
Good.
Pending, but yes, I believe so.
That would be
good. Get your COVID test. I hope it's negative. Get up to Charlotte, and you got a big one this week with the rematch with Notre Dame. All the best of luck, Reggie, and we'll talk to you again next week post game, and kind of look towards the college football playoff. And of course, we'll wait until then to wish you the merriest of Christmases. But we do hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. Okay.
Man, I appreciate you guys too, and like I said, hope to hear from you guys after the W this weekend.
Yeah,
and as always, go Tigers.
Well, you will hear from us. I promise you that. Thanks, Reggie.
Later.
There you go, Reggie Merriweather, former tailback at Clemson. Again, the ACC, by the way, is going to hire Northwestern AD Jim Phillips as their next commissioner as well. Didn't get to the Cleveland Indians stuff today. We'll touch on that more tomorrow. What day is it on the handy dandy National Day counter? We've been talking about Alabama as part of the college football playoff. It's National Alabama Day.
So Auburn and Alabama can celebrate together.
Right.
You have a big party together and celebrate all the things you have in common.
Good luck with that.
Okay.
You ever been to Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah. That doesn't work around there.
No.
Doesn't work here either.
No.
It's also National Monkey Day. Celebrate the unique characteristics of the monkeys. That's what they say.
The band or the animal?
No, the animal.
Yeah. They have a lot of unique characteristics.
They do.
Well, I guess.
Yeah. So happy Monkey Day and happy
Alabama
National
Day.
Alabama Day. Tomorrow's a good day. One of my favorite little treats in the world is tomorrow.
The Andes chocolates.
No, but it's good. You'll like it.
All right.
I mean, everybody likes these. We're out of time. Thanks to Reggie Merriweather and Wes Mitchell for joining us here on a cold front moving through type Monday afternoon. Buckle up. It's coming this week in the state of South Carolina.
I'm ready.
By the way, Clemson's cracked the AP's top 25 in basketball. We'll see if Clemson and Carolina can play this weekend in hoops. Scheduled to tip at noon in Columbia. We'll have an update on that on Wednesday. which is also National Signing Day. Thanks to Darren Goldwater. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening to our program. Have a marvelous Monday afternoon. JV and Goldwater Show returns tomorrow at noon.